Let's go through the environmental impacts of mountaintop removal, but also all surface mining. All right. The first one is valley fill. Companies used to have a free reign to just move overburden into valleys nearby the mine, which would literally bury the streams and impact land and aquatic ecosystems. That has since been made illegal. Companies now need permits to do that because we have to be careful not to violate the Clean Water Act. Um, it still happens, however. The government does grant permits. As recently as 2008, the Bush administration was working very hard to loosen these restrictions to allow coal companies and mountaintop removal operations to continue to fill valleys. And if you look here at the next picture, you see what I mean when you literally just take that overburden and waste and fill a valley. All right, and the stream has now dried up. All right, a second direct environmental impact of mining is the sludge or the slurry, which we put in things called surface impoundments. Okay, surface impoundment is a man-made pond to store that sludge or slurry, that mixture of water and mining byproducts, all right, the stuff left over from processing. That stuff, that sludge and slurry, becomes toxic, and when it's stored in surface ponds, you can predict there's a chance that it will flood, or the walls holding the surface impoundment might break and release that into the environment. It may seep into the groundwater. All right, it could also literally evaporate, which is what they want it to do. They want the water to evaporate and the toxic byproduct to be left behind so that they can scrape it up and dispose of it as hazardous waste. However, more than not, it will find its way into the groundwater supply and poison local groundwater supplies, drinking water supplies. So this is what we do. All right, you have this byproduct of the mining industry, and we need to do something with it. And surface impoundment is one of the things we do. All right. A third environmental impact is acid mine drainage, a very important one. Acid mine drainage or acid mine runoff is a result from the tailing piles that are piled up nearby the mine, and when any type of sulfide material interacts with water, it becomes toxic. All right, it becomes highly acidic, and that stuff can flow into our creeks and streams. It could leak into the groundwater. It becomes a very dangerous situation. So this is how local streams to mining operations become poisoned and damaged. This happens a lot in Pennsylvania. A lot of our creeks and streams have been damaged from acid mine runoff. So this one in particular gets an asterisk because it's a huge problem where sulfide materials make streams too acidic for life and the ecosystems are damaged. All right, there are some solutions, and here's one. Here's one that's in the development phase right now. You have a tailings pile where contaminated water is leaking into the groundwater table, and what they're going to do is they're going to build a porous wall, and they're going to use microbes to filter or neutralize the highly acidic contaminated water. All right, and those microbes act as a neutralizer. And there's a couple of different things that you can use as a neutralizer. Lime is one of them. But the remediated water, the idea is that as it passes through this barrier, the remediated water on the other side is cleaner than the contaminated water from the mine tailings. So that's just one example of something that is a solution to the problem of acid mine runoff using these sulfate reducing microbes. All right. The other things you could do, you can use constructed wetlands. There's other commercial processes, but you can see how nature and the ecological services it provides is a solution for this problem. All right, here you go. Here's some pictures of acid mine runoff, and you'll always know a stream that has been damaged by acid mine runoff by that copper brown color. All right, if you see that in a creek or a stream, it's been impacted by acid mine drainage. All right, and again, this is a big problem in Pennsylvania. Okay, a fourth environmental impact is through the smelting process. And smelting is the process to extract metals from ore, which involves things like heating, melting, chemical baths. All right, smelting is very energy intensive. All right, it produces a lot of waste, some of which is called slag. All right, it's a source of air pollution. Things like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide. It's nasty stuff. Okay, and then there's also the chance for exposure to heavy metals, especially for those who work in the industry who are doing the smelting. So I put a couple pictures here. This is obviously iron. All right, they're melting the ore to get the iron out, and then in the top left here, you see this is a giant furnace where they're smelting some mineral, trying to extract the metal from the ore. Okay, a fifth direct impact is obviously habitat destruction. When you take away a habitat, you've destroyed it. You've impacted basically everything around it. So habitat destruction is somewhat of an obvious impact of mountaintop removal and mining and other open pit mines and strip mines. What becomes dangerous is when these operations are in and around endemic species and endangered species, and that becomes a huge problem. And the last direct environmental impact that I have to talk about is called reclamation. And that has to do with restoring the area to what we're going to call the pre-mine condition. We're going to try and get it back to what it once was, or to a stable condition. All right, and that's where the law comes in, because there's a 1977 Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act. Mining companies are required to restore the area around the mine and the surrounding environment to their pre-mine condition, or at least a stable condition when they shut down the mine. And that second provision there becomes extremely important, because when you take a mountain away and put it back, it's very difficult to restore that area to pre-mine condition. So what we see is, in these reclamation projects, we see areas that have been reclaimed or repurposed. And if you look at this picture very closely, you'll see the mountaintop has been removed and a golf course has been developed. Here's another version where a forest and a mountain used to be. The reclamation process in these two cases have both failed. Companies usually use non-native tree species or non-native grasses and try and plant those species on soils that have been not only moved but depleted of natural minerals. So the soils that are left behind are very poor quality, and the grasses have trouble growing. So the reclamation process becomes a direct environmental impact. I have this slide here, and you might want to do this. It's just an interesting exercise. There's a website, ilovemountains.org, and you can type in your zip code to find out if your energy company supports mountaintop removal. And what I did was I entered my zip code, and mine actually did. You are connected to mountaintop removal. My electricity provider, PP&L, is owned by the Southern Union Company, which buys coal from companies engaged in mountaintop removal. It's not the only place they get coal from. These companies get coal from all kinds of different places, but one of the places is engaged in mountaintop removal. So that just gives me that much more reason to turn off my lights, unplug my devices when I'm not using them, and really conserve electricity. I also have the option through my electric company to choose green energy solutions, and that's actually what I do. I'm telling the company through consumer choice to use more green alternatives. So it might be a nice exercise for you to do. This is an overview of some of the other environmental impacts of the mining industry, so you might want to take a look at this. There's too many to note, and it just might be a nice exercise for you to look at. Okay, we're seeing a new type of mining occur, and it's beginning in what's called the tar sands of Alberta, Canada. And aside from open pit mining and strip mining, this is a little bit different of a method. And what we're mining in the tar sands of Alberta, Canada is tar, or oil. This is a petroleum mine that the ore isn't ore, it's actually oil, but it's mixed within the sand. It's mixed within the soil itself in large quantities in Alberta, Canada. Canada has the largest deposits of oil in the world. All right, and they call them the tar sands. But to mine the tar sand is extremely energy intensive. And we'll talk a lot about this topic in our energy unit, but I just want to show you this slide because this is a mine in Alberta, Canada in the tar sands. And it's not an open pit mine, it's not a strip mine. It is literally taking the land away and extracting the oil out of the sand. So you've literally taken the land away. I don't think there's a name for it yet. This is somewhat of a new industry that's exploding at the moment because of the United States' need for oil. Our consumption rates are always increasing, and Canada happens to be a neighbor. It's our largest supplier of oil. It is the reason why the Keystone XL pipeline was proposed. But this industry, this type of mining, is extremely environmentally destructive.